Max Out Savings Advisors. The views expressed during the broadcast are solely for entertainment purposes and do not necessarily express the views of KNTH, its management, Max Out Savings Advisors, or its sponsors. Max Out Savings Advisors and members of the Max Out Savings team may or may not hold securities mentioned during the show. Plan for your prosperity. Prepare for your retirement. Safeguard your savings. And nurture your investments. This is the Max Out Savings Show with Ted Geoca, a presentation of Max Out Savings Advisors. Now, here's your host from Max Out Savings Advisors, Ted Geoca.
Welcome to the Max Out Savings Show. I'm Ted Geoca, and we're talking savings, investments in your retirement here on the show. A happy 4th of July to everybody today. It's the America's 250th anniversary of the most powerful nation in the world. And, we hope we'll have another 250. And so we've completely altered the world on so many levels. And it's really exciting. It's an exciting time going to a 4th of July parade here after the show. And it should be a lot of fun. And it's just, happy birthday to the United States. This is a country that was built on a free market system, on capitalism. We can see it with record highs in the stock market. We could see it with AI now. Before that we could see it with the internet. Before that, we could see it with the automobile, with the computer chip, with the telephone, with the telegraph. I mean, almost every major move forward in history in the last 250 years has come out of the United States. Initially, at first, no, but in the last 100 years, it's really about the last 150 years since the Civil War. The cotton gin, it's been just one thing after another has all come out of the United States. I mean, not a whole lot has come out of Europe, quite frankly, for being an advanced society as they are, because they don't have capitalism. They don't have people. They don't want to have they don't want to have people being successful. It's a feudalist society that they really were never able to break out of. Really, that's really what made the United States. People came over from Europe. The type of people that came over here were just, look, I don't want to live in this world. I want something of my own. I want to own property. I want to be somebody. And I can't do it in Europe. I can't get, I've not inherited the property. I can't, there's no opportunity here, but there's opportunity in America, and they came here. So really, there was almost a self-selection process for the American people that would come here. And what they did is, these were a can-do, bright people, very hardworking, and get the job done type of people. And it shows. As we said, if you just go through history, if you start out, with the, look at the oil business with Rockefeller. If you look at, I'm not sure we actually invented drilling for oil and gas. We're really the leader there. The automobile, the telegraph, we did that. I think they maybe were a little ahead of us in England and the railroads, but besides that, the telegraph, the telephone, Alexander Graham Bell, the computer chip, the computer. It was actually not the computer, but it was the transistor. They came out of Bell Labs, and the computers. If you look at the internet, that came from the United States of America. If you look at AI, we're the global leaders in AI. And again, it's because of this free market capitalist system we have. That's it's not a perfect system, but it's the greatest in the world. And so we really wanted to talk about this today. See, really what the United States has done for people in the world. And I think we've got some shifts happening in here that we want to watch closely. And we're going to discuss them later on the show. I think one area that the United States lagging, quite frankly, is savings. We'd like to see that come up more. We'd like to see a higher savings rate in the United States. Compared to the Asians, we're not as big as savers. This really is much more of a consumer-based economy. And part of that is people are just so optimistic in the United States. They tend to spend more money and save less just because they're always convinced they're going to figure out a way to make things work. Whereas in other places, if you look at the Asians, they're big savers, but they went through communism. They're like, hey, we're not sure what's going to happen. We could get shut down, and that'll be it. They communism, and they went through the Cultural Revolution. If you look at the Vietnamese, they had the Vietnamese War. If the Cambodia, look what happened there. If you look at Taiwan, they basically it's made up of escapees from China that fought off the communist revolution, and so these people they tend to big save. Japanese, they went through World War II. They didn't win; they lost. And so it's just it's a different mindset. This incredible can-do attitude, really powers the United States, but we're not quite as good as savers. So you want to save more because you're never sure what can happen in the future. But Americans are just so optimistic about themselves, about the country, that they will always move forward, that they tend to be less savers. You always want to start with 10% plus the company match. I always like to try to get that in the beginning of the show, the Max Out Savings Show. We started this show 20 years ago and really talking about savings. At the time, no one talked about savings. They didn't realize it was such a big issue that it is today. And really, and people are now they're now realizing they have to save for money. They have the new Trump accounts that have come out. Get $1,000 if a baby's born in the United States. They get $1,000 to put into a savings account to buy stocks or bonds, and it can grow over time. In 20 years, it'll help them pay for schooling, and it maybe help them buy a house. The people like Michael Dell has contributed additional money, so you get even a little bit more money into the program. I mean, it's exciting. Things are happening. So people are realizing that savings are one thing that we have to work on to continue to grow the country. And you always want to start out, hit 10% plus the company match with your savings. That'll get you up to about 13%. That's what the numbers say pretty much. You can if you're saving about 13%, you can pretty much spend more than that in and in the end, you should have enough savings for retirement. I think one of the things to understand is this has been a very good stock market over the last couple of years. We had good year 26 so far, the reasonably good year this year, great year last year. For us, phenomenal year. Good year before. What was that? It's 26, 26. And then I think the year before that, we had a drawdown in the market that was, so we've had about, this is the third, third or fourth year of uprising market. That always doesn't work that way, and I do think you need to be cautious in here. I think you're going to get problems in these markets. You're going to get issues come up, unexpected things, and when the markets had this big a run, you do want to have your guard up. There's just an enormous amounts of speculation in the market right now, enormous amounts of option trading and different types of things. But just because things are working, that too will pass. And so you want to make sure your portfolio is somewhat bulletproof. And I'm really hearing so much about holding stocks long term. We tend to be long term holders at Max Out Savings Advisors, and we've had to sell a lot just because we had such big gains the last year and a half. This has almost been ridiculous, but understand that you want to hold things long term, but I'm hearing people say you never sell anything just because some of these things have gone up so much. And I think, NVIDIA is kind of the classic example, but if you look at NVIDIA, great company, good earnings prospects, but there's a lot of other people coming into their market. And if you look over, starting, with Fairchild Semiconductor in the 1960s, it's been semiconductors have been a cyclical market. And so you always want to, pair some off. It's really, people are just so confident right now. I think you always have to have your guard up. I've always believed the really big money in the markets are made when it's down. And you make it when it goes up, but you got to get there first and put the positions on. And we tend to be value investors in these markets. But so we've had a good run. We'll have to see where it goes from here. And what happens in where we go. Now, there's a couple things I want to discuss here on the show today. It's 4th of July weekend. Again, we want to touch on the United States of America, what a great country is. But there was a real shift this week, a real fundamental shift in the political landscape that I do want to discuss with between Zoran Mamdani, and I can't even hardly pronounce his name, and Donald Trump. I mean, basically, the battle lines were drawn, and the gauntlet was thrown down this weekend, and things I believe fundamentally changed. We have to cover that. Also, we want to cover what's going on with AI. There's been there's a lot of positives, but some real people have really come out and brought up some interesting things. And we're seeing kind of a broadening out, and we're seeing a lot of cross currents. We're going to cover that in the next segment here on the Max Out Savings Show, as well as what's going on there. Is AI for real? Yes. But the question is, I mean, we're gonna probably spend $4 to $5 trillion on this, and we're still not sure what it's actually going to do for working people or anything else. And this goes back to really some of the stuff we're going to discuss in the second thing. Also, we want to touch base on the markets here. An interesting question here. If you look at gold and silver, they've had a correction, a substantial correction. We were cautious earlier in the year on the precious metals. We lightened up quite a bit there. The question is, are we getting some type of bottom in place here? And that's one thing I think I've always kind of thought that we would see some bottoming in here somewhere in this area. And so we want to watch that closely. If you look at at silver, there's still huge deficits in silver that continue as you're still looking at 25 million barrels. I mean, 25 million ounces of silver this year. If you look at it, it was 40 million in 25, 150 million in 24, 200 million in 23, just massive shortages of silver. And silver is a key component in industrial, military, AI devices and solar, and so it's one of the critical materials out there. I think as you get close to the 50s, there's going to be big buyers continue to come into the market there. Gold, same thing. It goes under 4,000 and probably see buyers here. I mean, the real question mark is what are the earnings going to come in the markets with the gold and the silver, and I think you're going to see pretty good earnings come in. They've corrected quite a bit, but if you look at many of these companies are trading at under 10 times earnings, and with the decline in oil and gas, diesel fuel is a big component to the oil and to the production of gold and silver, and so by it dropping off some, I think you're going to see a decline in earnings to some extent. But again, most of the analysts they're really using much lower numbers, probably about $4,300 for gold, and even though gold hit about $5,500 an ounce, most of the analysts really were about 4,400 an ounce. So no one's really were expecting $5,000 gold. So we need to see where it is. But if these prices hold in here, you're still looking at some pretty good growth companies long term in the sector. I think it's going to continue to give opportunity to the markets out there, and we want to watch that sector. So I think as it comes down, you can start buying some of the precious metals again. And again, it's never one of these ones you buy it all or sell it all. You're still dealing with the government that has $39 trillion, $39 trillion worth of debt. You see, how are we going to get this under control? And that's becoming increasingly difficult. And so that's why the precious metals, which quite frankly, since in the last 20 years or so, they've outperformed the S&P 500. A lot of people have a hard time believing that. We called the bull market in gold and silver in 2021, I believe it was September of 20, after Ben Bernanke's helicopter speech. We said there was going to be it was a 2001, a 20-year bull market. We were wrong. It was a 25-year bull market or more. But we said, look, in oil was gold was about $270 an ounce or something. And so we've been right on this. It's produced big results. But the question is, where do we go from here? I think we're still continuing to base in this area. Now, tell you what, let's take a quick break. I want to talk about some big developments this week in AI, in the political world, and we'll be right back after this quick break right here on the Max Out Savings Show.
The Max Out Savings Show with Ted Geoca will return shortly. To speak with Ted Geoca now, call 713-339-1070. Back in a moment with the Max Out Savings Show.
I'm Ted Geoca, and I approve this message.
Inflation, instability of the market, bonds, precious metals, oil and gas, and lack of old-fashioned cash puts your retirement at risk. It takes a different type of portfolio to deal with these issues, and that's where Ted Geoca can come in, and he can help. Go to maxoutsavings.com and schedule some time with Ted. That's maxoutsavings.com. And listen to the Max Out Savings Show every Saturday at 10 a.m. on AM 1070 and FM 1033, The Answer.
I'm Sam Malone, president of 512 New Media. We're Houston's leading marketing and content creation firm for many reasons. Our assets are exceptional, from video production to web design, strategy, and the ability to say no. Saying no is integral in launching a successful, profitable campaign. For example, take a look at Memorial Day. It's a federal holiday set aside to honor and mourn those in our U.S. military who died while serving our country. I'll say it again, for those who died while serving our country. So how does having a sale work in unison with the reason for the day off? Look, we know people will be at the beach and barbecuing and having parties. We would probably say no to launching a Memorial Day sale. So is there another way to commemorate the day while marketing your brand? Absolutely. And from our experience, the same holds true with Easter Day sales and MLK Day sales and Christmas Day sales. That's why we're different. No cookie cutter, follow the crowd, template marketing. Let's talk. We're 512 New Media. 512 New Media. With better marketing comes better value, creating better results.
In the 1970s, the big song was the Bee Gees' Stayed Alive. Well, it was difficult back then to stay alive if you were a retiree. Inflation was running rampant, and since then, over the last 25 years, it's gone away. Well, inflation's coming back, and it's going to endanger your retirement. If you're a retiree, inflation is your biggest enemy. Hi, this is Ted Geoca of the Max Out Savings Show. If you need help with your retirement, I'd like to help you out. Go to maxoutsavings.com. That's maxoutsavings.com, and we'll show you how you manage through inflation. Don't let inflation destroy your retirement.
We return now to the Max Out Savings Show. Here's Ted Geoca.
Welcome back to the Max Out Savings Show. I'm Ted Geoca. We're talking savings, investments, and your retirement. We'll talk a couple things. We want July 4th. A couple big developments happened. Zoran Mamdani is mayor of New York. And we talked about him on the show in the past, and I mean, I think the New Yorkers made a huge mistake. They didn't run a decent candidate. Then they had two candidates on more the right run against one candidate on the left, and stupidly they let Mamdani win the election. He is a socialist. He's got charisma, and he's very smart. Okay, those are not good combinations, and you can see this coming. You know, this guy's likely going to be in the mix for the presidential run in a couple of years. And at a minimum, he's going to influence candidates all over the United States of America. And this is a real concern. And if you look at it, this is what people don't understand. You had a communist revolution in Russia. There was, you know, I don't know how many people lived in 30, 40 million people lived in Russia. There was only 1,000 or 1,500 people took the country over. It doesn't take a lot. If you get very aggressive, very smart, people with a charismatic leader, that's what you need to sit there and foment a revolution and take over a government. It's not that hard. And Zoran is a problem. And he's the face of socialism. He's smiling all the time. And uh, you know, and he's a Muslim, but it doesn't make any difference. He has that ability to lead. And Trump recognized this. And just to and Trump had a speech in up in Mount Rushmore last night, and a couple things he said is he came. This is what he said. He said, "You can be loyal to Karl Marx, or you can be loyal to America. You can be a communist, or you can be a patriot. You cannot be both." And 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 he tied it to the resurgence of the communist menace in the United States. And he said America will never be communist. But look, make no mistake, there's very little difference between the socialist Mamdani and communists. They're exactly the same thing. He wants to take over housing in take over the housing in New York City and convert it to low income housing, to free housing. He wants free food, free transportation, promising a whole bunch of stuff. Well, communists have an incredibly good record of failure when it comes to this. I mean, if you look at China, it's quote a communist country, but basically it's very capitalistic for the most part. But if you look almost anywhere, look what's happening with socialism in Venezuela. Look what happened to socialism anywhere in the world. Look what happened in Cambodia. They built mountains of skulls. Look what happened in the Soviet Union. Look what happened how many tens of millions of people were killed in China. And then they had the Cultural Revolution where they took out all the intellectual leadership in the country, and put them out on farms. It has a remarkably good record of failure, but it doesn't make any difference because it's free food, free education, free housing. Everything is free and you don't have to do any work. And it sounds real good. And once these people get in power, they will never give back the power. If you look at Venezuela, classic example, Hugo, what was it? Wasn't Hugo Chavez before him took over the country, and it was so bad in the country that the UN came out and said that there was actually, they've never seen this, but the people in the country actually lost weight because there was no food in the country. They had millions, a huge chunk of the population had fled Venezuela, enormous number of millions of them in the United States. And I think the number is about 7 million Venezuelans in the United States. But the economy collapsed. You couldn't get food. People were starving, yet magically Hugo Chavez he was reelected every time. It just, once they're in power, they're not going to give up power. And so people have to understand this. It's not going to, let's try out socialism for 4 years and say, that's not how it works. And they will lie, cheat, and steal and kill to get what they want. And so the socialists are making big inroads. There's 3 congressmen that were socialists that have been elected here recently to Congress. And so what do you do about this? A couple things. Look, the economy is doing very well. President Trump is doing a great job bringing factories back to the United States. As we said in the show, he's taken a page book from the Chinese on how they built their economy. They stole all our jobs, stole our factories. Well, we want them back, and we're going to get them back now. Well, not all of them, but we're getting a lot of them back. We're going to get growth in the economy. We're going to get growth through AI, new manufacturing coming in, manufacturing jobs. Those factories are going in now. It takes time, but they're going to be hiring for the factories. He's doing a good job, but these people are coming up and say, look, you don't need to work, you don't need to do anything. And Trump is in, everything has been working. Trump has been, look, the Iran war has not been a good situation for the United States of America. Let's be realistic. Okay, it was at the wrong time. It was fought, it was quickly rushed through and pushed through, and it was fought at the wrong time. We're trying to restructure the country. We're trying to bring it back. The socialists sense opportunity. We have big inflation out there. People are unhappy. And now oil prices go up. They're unhappier. And inflation, it's reignited inflation. If you look at the price of the 10-year bonds gone from about it was at about 3.95 to almost 4.5 here recently. It basically bottomed on the on the Iran war. The day the Iran war started, bonds were about 3.37 on the 2-year. Now they're at 4.18. People are paying higher interest. The cost of everything is going up. It's not a good situation. So President Trump understands, he sees the risk to this of the socialists and Mamdani, and so he needs to pivot back. We've been sidetracked by the. He needs to pivot back. He needs to become much more populist, and because the Republican Party does not become more populist, they're gonna. Trump came in as a populist and he shifted away with the Iran war. Now we've got to get back on the populist track because we've got these elections are coming up and we've got to push back on the socialists. They're going to make, are they going to take over? No, but they're going to win some more and then they're going to win some more. And this guy is, Mamdani sat down at George Washington's desk, one of his desks, and gave a speech that basically said the American children are starving. Where in the United States of America are people starving? Have you looked at children in poor areas in the United States? One thing they're not doing, I promise you, is starving. And there's always ways we can improve things, but understand that this is what we're dealing with. Is socialism has an appeal with young people. AI is causing it so companies aren't hiring young people anymore. They're just getting AI. Well, that's a problem. They're firing workers because they think they can convert everything to AI. That's a problem. Okay. The AI is, look, is AI works? Yes. Is AI a great thing for corporate America? Wow. It's fantastic. It's going to help them get their margins, improve their margins. They can use less workers. They can fire more workers. Their margins go up. They make more money. AI is fabulous. Okay. They use subsidized electricity that the American people have paid for. They got everybody investing in it. It's a good, but it's not good for working people. It's obviously people don't believe in it. Look, anytime you had a major development in the United States, a railroad, if you look at a railroad, the telegraph, the railroad, the telephone, people could, electricity, they could see, well, I can see, hey, I would like to maybe get a phone one day in my home or electricity. They could see there was a genuine advantage. The interstate highway system, computers, the internet. Oh, look, I can get on the internet and check the weather or see what my sports team is doing. This is great. AI, yes. Can I call up and say, hey, who's playing, in the World Cup today? Yes. But if it's costing all these jobs, it's a problem out there. And so this is opening in the door for socialism. We have to push back on so make no mistake, these people are communists. They're ruthless as can be. Mamdani is he is a Muslim. Look, I'm sorry. This is the United States of America. It is basically the last bastion of Christianity in the world. You could say there's a couple countries. There's Greece, Poland, the United States, and Mexico are the core where people are pretty solidly Christian, and you're just going to have to kill them all off to sit there and get in there. Europe, basically, the people aren't going to church anymore. England. The king is a pagan, for God's sakes. He's now converted. That I'm no longer head of Church of England. I'm all representative of all religious faiths. Well, then why don't you step down as king and go somewhere else? But bottom line, these people are he's basically a druid. He's a pagan, and so the core of Christianity is the United States. With the money for missionaries, for all types of things, it comes from the United States. This is a Christian country. It was founded by Christians. Remember, the Pilgrims, what did they leave? They left the country. They left England because they wanted freedom of religion. Freedom of religion is in our Constitution. It's in our Declaration of Independence. It's one of the key reasons how many groups of Christians around the world have come to the United States for freedom of religion. Well, we're not interested in becoming Muslims. There's freedom of religion. What people, the thing about we're keeping church and state separate, that was because they did not want an official religion of the United States of America. They didn't want like the Church of England, where the king ran the church. People wanted to worship however they could, which is fine. But make no mistake about it. There's not a lot of difference between Baptists or Catholics or Orthodox or Presbyterians or Methodists. Most of these, they're almost all identical. If you actually look at a lot of the services and stuff, this is a Christian country. And so when we have, when we have this, these Muslims are coming in, you're seeing the same things with up in Minnesota with the Somalis up there. And again, look, I get they want their freedom of religion too. I appreciate that. But understand, we're not interested in your Sharia law. We're not interested in your socialism, and we're not interested in your corrupt way of doing business. Look what's happened in Minnesota. So there has to be pushback, because if you don't push back in this, look at Minnesota. These people, it was one thing after, they couldn't even spell learning right, the Learning Center. And these people were getting millions of dollars coming in, and people saw it. They knew it. They go, Governor, look, they're stealing us blind. They didn't care because they got the votes and they did not care. Okay. And so this is what you're dealing with in this country now. So there is a battle line starting to be drawn between capitalism and socialism. And socialism is very appealing to young people. And so we've got to get back. If you look at much of corporate America today is basically oligopolies or monopolies with one or two companies at the top, or consolidating the industry, raising the prices on everybody. I mean, the classic example is private equity companies buying up all the veterinarians out there. And when you take your dog to the vet, it costs, a small fortune to get it fixed. But look, that's not, they need to enforce. But it's hard. It's not antitrust there, but there's a lot of sectors of the economy that clearly we don't have any competition on. I mean, and clearly the government has to push back on some. And the reason why we have to do this is because we got the socialists and the communists on our flanks, and if we can't leave that exposed, we've got to come in and defend it. And so I think you're going to see the government become more really populist. And I think, look, Trump has some real issues. I mean, it's not a good look on his family and other people in the cabinet making fortunes while they're in government, or their families. That is, I'm sorry, I could rattle off the names of dictators' kids around the world that and we all know them, all across the world, where it became so obvious that it turned people against the leader. And so something to think about. I think Trump is doing a very good job. I think he's restructuring the country. I think we've got these factories coming on. I think this economy is going to continue to do well. But the question is going to be what's this battle? Because look, if the socialists might get in power, you think where do you think that stock market's going to be if Zoltan or someone else like him starts running? It's clearly a socialist. You think the stock market is going to be up, where it is today? It's going to be cut in half. Go look at any country. Go look at the stock prices of any socialist country. Look at the property values. Go look at the property values of Venezuela. Go look at the property values of these other failed states out there. You think your house is worth $500,000, guess again. It's just not going to happen. And that's if you even have the property rights. If you go to other countries in South America, some of these countries, you can't even leave your house for any length of time for a vacation. You have to put a guard there, or otherwise someone moves in and claims it's theirs. That's not the world we want to live in. The people want to live in the United States of America, a free market economy with freedom of religion, and freedom to do things. But in order to get there, you have to maintain good governance, and you have to also keep it populist, because you have to keep the other side out. And this is Mamdani. What makes him so dangerous, Zoran Mamdani, the mayor of New York, is he's very charismatic. He's very smart. He's got a lot of young people believing his stuff. And look what they're already doing. They're putting taxes on second homes. They want to put a billionaire tax. They put rent controls in place. All these types of things, and the property values are going to continue to get worse in New York. And one of the problems you really run into in New York is you got these New Yorkers that think it's the greatest place in the world. For what reason? I have no idea, living in Texas. But And they won't really look at the problem, and they think it's a short-term thing. When these guys, you look around the world, look at Castro. Castro came out of the jungles. I mean, he's very charismatic, and it's always the same. They're smart people. Their parents are wealthy. They're very smart. They're charismatic people. It's not some poor guy that comes up it's the guys from the top, come from wealthy liberal families. They're the people that take over and put the socialism and communism and destroy the country. Tell you what, let's take a quick break. We're going to talk what's going on with AI, some big changes coming up. And is this some type of top? What's happening there? We'll be right back right here on the Max Out Savings Show.
The Max Out Savings Show with Ted Geoca will return shortly. To speak with Ted Geoca now, call 713-339-1070. Back in a moment with the Max Out Savings Show.
I'm Ted Geoca, and I approve this message.
Max Out Savings is looking at rising interest rates, the bond market, and our country's spending to project the impact on your retirement. They use that data to help you flex to current conditions with your future in mind. Call 713-627-0400 to learn more. That's 713-627-0400 or maxoutsavings.com. Remember, you can hear the Max Out Savings program right here Saturdays at 10 a.m. on AM 1070 and FM 1033. The Answer.
Hi, I'm Sam Malone, the owner of Houston's cutting-edge media company called 512 New Media. At 512 New Media, we create amazing videos that companies use on their websites, telling their story in bold colors with exciting animation and graphics. At 512 New Media, we also shoot television commercials and instructional videos. And if you want to show off your business from the air, we're ready to go with our drone video aircraft. Let us help you create your media message. We're online at 512newmedia.com or call 281-822-8803. 512 New Media is Houston's only media creation and distribution company that's actually owned by someone who's currently on the air. And that gives us an incredible edge when creating content for consumers to use on their laptops, tablets, and smartphones. Standing by to create your message, we're 512 New Media, 512newmedia.com.
This is Ted Geoca, host of the Max Out Savings Show, one of Houston's most popular financial radio shows, celebrating over a decade on the air in Houston, Texas. With stocks at record high valuations and interest rates near record lows, you need to have your guard up. You need to have a plan to manage risk to your retirement. Do you? At Max Out Savings Advisors, we have a risk-based value investing approach to your retirement. If you would like some help managing your retirement, go to maxoutsavings.com to set up an appointment. That's maxoutsavings.com.
We return now to the Max Out Savings Show. Here's Ted Geoca.
Welcome back to the Max Out Savings Show. I'm Ted Geoca. We're talking savings, investments in your retirement here. And some coffee here, ready to go. What's happening with the AI in here? It really, if you look at these stocks, they haven't gone anywhere. They've been kind of correcting. There's been a lot of different things happening. Alex Karp over at Palantir really made some remarks about AI that, a lot of these companies are turning over their systems to AI, and it's getting out there in the artificial intelligence world. So the artificial intelligence knows what all these companies are doing, and they're realizing, wait a minute, whoa, we're letting everyone else kind of it's called open the kimono and see everything that's going on inside this company. What are we doing? We're letting them see what our trade secrets are and everything else. And so they're having to pull back some on that type of stuff. And the other thing is the pricing has gotten sky high on this as everyone's trying to use AI. And companies are running through Amazon famously blew through $500 million worth of token spending. They call it a token, is the spend the AI compute in 1 month, $500 million worth in 1 month. And they've, because there's, look, guys, we got to pull back. And it was rumored to be Amazon, but it's a big issue. So there's a lot of things happening in the sector. There's a huge pushback from the data centers. I mean, there's a lot of negativity on the data centers. If you look at them, they're big, they're noisy. Some of these places, they want to put like 100 Caterpillar engines to produce electricity. Will you ever listen to how loud 100 Caterpillar engines are? In a lot of that is very deep megahertz sound, which travels long distances, and some of it you can't hear, but it affects you. They use huge amounts of water as well. It was shortages. We have shortages of water all across the United States. Water is a key component. And then in the final thing is they use massive amounts of electricity, running up electricity costs across the United States. I mean, you can get cheaper electricity at night and stuff. Well, that's because no one's using it. But if the AI data centers are using it, that's going to push the price of it up. And so there's pushback on a number of areas. And at the same time, China's coming in. China's DeepSeek AI program, they cut prices 75% in May, but now they're raising the price up from about 6 yuan up to 12 yuan. So they're increasing the price of their systems. There's so many people using the Chinese ones because the Chinese are 1/5 to 1/10 of the cost of the American ones. And so there's more competition coming in from around the world. And keep in mind, China has built how many hundreds of coal-fired plants? Remember, the United States coal-fired plants have been in decline. I mean, the Gibbons Creek, which Elon Musk is looking at now, that used to be a coal plant, I believe, and they shut it down because President Biden, when they wanted to get rid of coal and everything. Well, the whole time we were closing down our cheap coal-fired electricity plants, China was building hundreds of them every year, using it to reduce their electricity costs. So they have a cheaper AI. They have an advantage in AI because of it. Ours are the fastest AI out there, the most powerful, but theirs is the cheapest. And so there's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of companies coming into the market wanting to build chips. Advanced Micro Devices building a chip. Google's building a chip. SpaceX wants to build a chip. Of course, NVIDIA's got their chip. And we have the shortage of memory. We have companies like Micron and Hynix and Samsung, which are big memory companies, but it's running the price of everything. In the show last week, we talked about the price of Apple products, of their MacBook Airs, their Macs, their different systems. They're going up 12 to up to 40% in some cases. The costs are going up on those now, which is causing inflation. Now, interesting. Apple didn't say anything about Apple phones, but Apple is now lobbying the administration to use Chinese memory chips, and so what they did is they raised the price of everything else, and they pointed that out to the White House, I'm sure, and said, "Look, this is what's going to happen. Your phone's going to go up another $200 or $300." And we talked about on the show. Look, it's one thing if my phone is now going to be $1,200, $1,300, $1,400. That's but if you got a wife and you've got 3 kids, that's 5 phones, and they go up $300. That works out to be $1,500 more you have to pay. Where's it going to come from out of your pocket? You're already having to pay more for gas, for medical insurance, and everything else. So again, this is causing the AI is causing big inflation out there as well. So a couple thoughts. Look, it's very unusual during the build-out phase, the heavy capitalization phase, you see stocks running up this much in value. Typically, they run up, but then they go, well, we want to, they'll kind of stair step, and when we start seeing some profit, they'll go higher. Well, right now, Wall Street's given most of these companies basically, a blank check, and then they've also given them, well, look, we're gonna believe that everything you build is going to be super profitable, so we're just going to value it up that way, which means they're probably too optimistic. So what I think we're going to see happen is I think this AI is topping in here to some extent. I think the market will likely broaden out. I think we're going to have to see who the winners or the losers are going to be on this. The question is, like in Caterpillar, I think it was Michael Berry came out and is shorting Micron Caterpillar. He pointed out, well, Caterpillar is a cyclical company. It's at 45 times earnings. I mean, eventually it's going to slow down. I mean, it's hard to value cyclical companies at the same with, as we talked about on the show, Fairchild Computer ultimately, I believe, went into bankruptcy in the 60s or the 70s. uh, all the Texas Instruments is one of the Intel's one. Those are one of the few that stuck around. So many of these companies went into bankruptcy because it's a cyclical business, and so I think this is kind of what we're looking at. I think we're going to have. I think the economy picks up some more in the second half. I think these factories, which President Trump is bringing back, and everything from automobiles to drugs, are going to start coming back. We got more AI facilities being built. So we should have a good economy. But at the same time, the question is, where's the valuation of some of these stocks? I would be more careful of that. We've had a big hit in many of the momentum stocks. Some of them are bottoming and they'll probably bounce to some extent. But some of these big companies, I think with the really many of the big tech companies, the Mag 7, they're down year to date. So it's not. This has been a very you're seeing a real shift out there because these big companies, they can't buy back stock endlessly. They have huge capital budgets. They've gone from cash flow positive cash cow companies to massive capex spending companies, and they have to cut back their 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 stock buybacks. And we've said with a lot of these big companies, when they're building a $25 billion AI facility, hey, you know, how much are you spending on that? We're spending Google. We're spending $200 billion on capex. You said, well, you're not seeing $200 billion. You're not even seeing 20 billion or 30, $40 billion coming off the bottom line in the company because it's construction in progress. Eventually, when they put these things in place, then they're going to start depreciating and then you're going to see that come down. So understand these earnings aren't nearly as good as everybody thinks they are in the sector. I think other areas of the market are going to be a better place to be. I think you start looking at the secondary effect of, you know, the winners longer term from AI. You know, Carbon, some of the people are saying, look, there's not a lot of winners out there. People using this really aren't having a whole lot of success. AI is phenomenal for writing code, but it's not as good on other areas as well. And and from the people I've talked to tell me that it makes a lot of mistakes, and you've got to kind of almost put it in a loop so it keeps trying to correct all the mistakes in the thing. And some of these guys have gotten in some real junk because of it, and you're just not hearing about it because there's such a big hype out there in the markets for it. So I think you want to watch. And I think one of the things we want to watch is what's going to happen with the Cosby. With the Cosby that's the Korean market, which is Hynix and Samsung, the big memory makers a huge chunk of that market, like 40% or something. It's not an exact number. It's a very rough number. And there's an enormous amount of speculation on there. And the markets have gone up. So what the Korean won is falling because as they're trying to get money out of the country, they can't. They're having to convert to yuan to dollars. And it's causing issues there. I think the size of the market caps is kind of destabilizing over there. And so one of the companies, and they've had to halt trading a number of times because the markets have fallen 6-8% all at once, and it's becoming very unstable. And so that's probably the canary in the coal mine we want to continue to watch. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens overall in there. A couple things. I think we're going to start coming into into the end of the year. We're going to see what is Kevin Warsh. What does he believe? Is he a hawk? Is he a dove? Likely, I think he's more of a hawk. I think they're going to shift over. I think they're going to make some changes in quantitative easing. I think the Fed is going to work very, very hard to prevent next time they have to do quantitative easing. If there's a problem in the markets or if there's a problem in the economy, they're not they want to have quantitative easing so the money goes into the economy, goes into companies, goes into workers' pockets, and they don't want the money coming in where, hey, we're buying bonds now, corporate bonds, and we might buy stock ETFs, and because there's a real problem. There's a massive wealth disparity in the United States, and the last thing that everyone wants to see is more money going into the wealthy's pockets through Federal Reserve actions. So they're going to shift What they want the next time they do quantitative easing, they want banks to lend more money to corporations. This is why you saw these are big changes you're not hearing about out there. But this is why J.P. Morgan came out with a $1.5 trillion quote fund to invest in corporate America, in manufacturing, in small companies in the United States. Take a look at J.P. Morgan's balance sheet. It's like 30. No, it's not. Excuse me. It's like 20, around 20%, give or take 5% of lending, and the rest is reefers. Repos, reverse repos, securities lending, all types of things. They're lending out to big hedge funds back and forth all day long. These big banks aren't. Most people, I've said this on the show. Most people, you go, hey Ted, if I go, what is the percentage of loans on big banks' balance sheets, on their asset side, and that they've lent money out to, and the answer is, they would go, 80, 90% loan. No, that's not what it is for these big banks. It's like 35% for the big winner, which I believe is Wells Fargo, down to in the 20s for people like JP Morgan. These big banks have become casino operators for Wall Street and other things. And so when the Fed comes in and engages in quantitative easing, what happens is that money goes on to Wall Street. So these are very big changes. They're going to affect the country long term, and they're starting to happen right under everyone's noses. And there's going to be, if you're right on the way this thing goes, there's going to be a lot of money to be made. And this is why we do so much research in this area. Most people probably haven't even ever heard of what I'm talking about, but it's there. It's going to be the big change. So we're going to have to see what Fed Chairman Warsh does. So that, again, for the second half of the year, that's one of the other things to look for. Now, a couple things coming up here. We sent out a free report, which we talk a lot about these big issues. It's called the Max Out Savings Report. We talk about saving money, investing, save aggressively, invest conservatively. It's all in the Max Out Savings Report. We send this out once a month to you, completely free. All you've got to do is sign up for it. Look, we have written about, in 2007, late 2007, November, we said that there was going to be an investment bank failure on Wall Street. It was a very controversial report. We laid out the case. We showed you the balance sheets. We just made a bunch of predictions. We showed you why we thought it would happen, and we were correct. We've done that time and again. It's a free report. Just go to the Max Out Savings website, maxoutsavings.com. Just sign up for the free report. There's a little button on there. If you need some help with your retirement, we manage retirement money at Max Out Savings Advisors, conservative money for the long term. You can go over there, get our phone number, or drop us an email, and we'll set up an appointment. We're here in Houston, Texas is our headquarters. So I'd like to help you. If you need some help, just go to maxoutsavings.com. And in the interim, remember our motto and philosophy, which is to save aggressively and invest conservatively. That, my friends, is the key to building up wealth over the long term. Save aggressively, invest conservatively. I hope everyone has a great 4th on this 250th anniversary of the United States of America.
This has been the Max Out Savings Show with Ted Geoca, a presentation of Max Out Savings Advisors. Join us next Saturday at 10 a.m. for the Max Out Savings Show with Ted Geoca on AM 1070. The Answer.